this association, my field, to have its website say, and it still prevails, that there are no cures of spasmodic dysphonia. And do you know who was responsible for that statement through the American Speech and Hearing Association?
Who did you find?
The National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association was influential, the sole source of information that was responsible for making the statement in ASHA, the American Speech and Hearing Association,
that there are no cures of spasmodic dysphonia?
That there are no cures of spasmodic dysphonia, and that spasmodic dysphonia should be treated by Botox.
And Botox is the treatment of choice for that condition.
In the medical community.
That's their view in the medical field.
So you put your finger on it before.
But
there's no medical cure.
But don't you think there's an inconsistency here on the part of the New York Times? Because if they're really disseminating a balanced, all the news that's really fit to print, the news that's fit to print is a cure that would not involve invasive medical procedures, but rather would help somebody to improve their voice without resorting to something toxic or something invasive like a surgery. There were more recent articles than the one you've talked about with Janie Brody.
I know we're going to bring it up to snuff, up to the
written
current.
by I think his name is Douglas. Is that McNeil Jr.?
No, Douglas G. McNeil Jr.
Douglas McNeil Jr. Right? Okay. Now
Douglas G.
He's flat out come out in that article and
March 2nd. 2003.
This
the
is
front
a couple years
page
ago.
of the New York Times.
He said that
Sunday edition, the most prestigious Sunday edition.
They shared in that article, that front page edition, that Botox gives patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices.
Right.
Is that an accurate statement?
No. It's not documented. I got in touch with...
Where did McNeil get this statement
I
from?
asked him that, and he faxed me the answer in a 2002 study. He sent a paragraph which had no relevance to what the story said. No relevance.
Nothing about Botox giving patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices.
No, it was.
Why would he send you
irrelevant.
that resource then? Why didn't he send you specifically the resource on the statement? You were very specific and clear with him that you wanted to know who you could attribute the statement that Botox is giving patients with spastic vocal cords back their voices.
Right.
Now, you seem to have some speculation that one of the sources of information for some of these articles, these medically related articles in your field to the New York Times, has to do with this fellow by the name of Mitchell Brin.
Could be.
But you don't know that,
No,
right?
No.
But where would McNeil, who is a layperson and a journalist, who knows almost nothing about spasmodic dysphonia other than the information he receives, who could possibly give him information like that?
Mitchell Brin and others like Mitchell Brin.
Okay. Who else besides, do you think, Andrew Blitzer?
Andrew Blitzer.
He could have supplied him that information?
No, Blitzer is one of the top people who
What about
believes that
Peek
ST
Wu?
is a neurological problem. Peek Wu is another. The medical profession believes wholeheartedly that spasmodic dysphonia is a neurological problem. They treat it with Botox 4 to 10 times a year or more each and every year for life. It may be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a Botox shot. It's a full employment
Kind of
act for the
expensive
medical.
for Botox, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't $3,000 awfully high? I mean, I've been seeing it advertised in the LA Times.
We had a young lady here.
I think $100 a shot.
Well, that's Botox for the face. We're talking about they made it a mystique.
Is there a difference in the Botox they receive? Is it like platinum lined or gold, or is it some special type of Botox they use for the vocal cords?
Well, Dr. Curtis, what is it called? What the
traffic will bear?
Isn't that it?
But that's like gouging. That's not something that medical.
Well, you call it what you want, but I'm just
would
speculating on that. We had a young lady here by the name of Nancy who had, I believe it was 9 Botox shots, $3,000 a shot every 3 or 4 months, and she had this for 2.5 years approximately. She never got one positive result, and her ear, nose, and throat doctor suggested that she increased the number of shots so she can have them once a month. But Nancy, and she was on this program, said, "But doctor, I've never had one positive result." So she discontinued because her personal physician told her not to continue.
Don't you find that odd that this woman would have not one positive result from Botox when the drug maker claims that Botox is 99% effective?
Well, the statement that is made, that 99%, whether it's made by Allergan, I'm not sure Allergan says that specifically, but physicians do say it in treating the patients. I have seen a patient, and she is not an anomaly, had 40 Botox shots from the Mayo Clinic and never got one positive result, not one.
0 out of 40.
That's over 8 years. Not one.
That's 0% efficacy.
Yeah. We had Tom Donovan, who is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He had 17 Botox shots. The only one that took is the first one, and he had the top-of-the-line doctors Brin and Bastin in Chicago. They're excellent doctors. The problem is not the physician, I'm saying. I believe the problem is with the product, because it's an unpredictable outcome. And Tom had 16 additional shots, and they never worked. That's 17 shots over a period of 4 years. I do not find these patients to be anomaly. I do not find them to be irregular.
I thought Donovan said that he had one of those shots really helped him.
The first one.
And that was given by Andrew Blitzer, right?
No, I think that was given by Brin.
Mitchell Brin?
Yeah, I think so.
So Dr. Brin, in other words, if you're really skillful at these shots, they can be effective then.
No, the point is it's unpredictable. These shots are repeated, but the outcomes are unpredictable.
Is the dosage in the shots, is that a very scientifically determined amount?
Well, the National Spasmodic Dysphonic video says the dosage is precise. Pete Wu in New York, who's one of the top ear, nose, and throat doctors, disputes that. He is experimental in the dosage. The point is that
what about the placement of the needle?
That's also
is that also
dispute.
Scientific?
The NSDA, National Spasmodic Dysphonic Association, says
Michael
it is.
Rolnick says
But
it is.
yes, I understand that. But the patients are telling me other than that. Now, how am I able to say that Botox is unpredictable, that its dosage is experimental, and incidentally, the treatment of SD is experimental. It is not approved directly by the FDA. It is approved because Botox is approved for eye spasms and for neck spasms, but it's used then for vocal cord spasms, because once you approve the product for one substance or one use, you can approve it for all, but it's not direct approval.
Don't you
and
think
therefore the physicians do not have to report serious side effects because it's not directly approved.
But doesn't that sound
by
like
the FDA.
that the drug maker, I mean just in this particular instance, is engaging in a Procrustean exercise, that they say that one size fits all. But how do you apply, if something works for a minor muscle in the eye, you're talking about minuscule little muscles, or in the neck, why would they think that it would work necessarily to improve voices?
Because Mitchell Brin is of the view, since he's a neurologist, that this is a neuromuscular, that this is a neurological problem, and that's where he makes the mistake. This is not a neurological problem.
Well, Brin insists that this is a dystonia.
Yes, but I'm telling you, and I'm verifying clinical experience, it cannot be a dystonia. A dystonia means you cannot change the voice no matter what you do. I can change the voice 90% of the cases when they first arrive in the office. There's no problem, because if it is a dystonia, which means it's a neurological problem, you cannot change the voice. Therefore, I can report ongoing cures, because spasmodic dysphonia is not a neurological problem. It's not a disease. It's not a medical problem. Well, there's something else that I did. I'm going to go back to explain. In 1980, I reported on a number of cures on spasmodic dysphonia. I believe I reported on in the International Association of Logopedics and Phonography, Voice and Speech.
That's a peer-reviewed, prestigious journal, isn't it?
International journal. And I explained that I have these cures and cited the cases. Jane Brody knows about that, ignored it. The New York Times, from up, above, down, has ignored a peer-reviewed International Association of Logopedic Review. They have ignored the names of the doctors I report on from the Mayo, from UCLA, from Cedars-Sinai, from Scripps, and so forth, and the patients who they can contact who have been cured of spasmodic dysphonia. Why are they doing this?
Well, here's the puzzling scenario that you have working, because I think what you've got is you have really an overarching, really mega and a meta paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the medical paradigm. And you don't fit in the medical paradigm, because what you're really doing is really trying to help relearn and condition somebody, change their voice through behavior modification, a specialized form of voice behavior modification.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really applying any injections to people. As a matter of fact, you don't really even believe that psychotherapy works.
No,
it
doesn't. It's never reported
your
a single
colleague,
cure.
Arnie Aronson, a very respected luminary in your field from the Mayo Clinic. I mean, this is a man that spent his time at Rochester, Minnesota, working on this for an entire career. He says that the treatment that you engage in is one of a psychotherapeutic treatment.
Well, I don't do psychotherapy.
So what is he talking about when he refers to what you do as a psychotherapeutic
He's trying to
treatment?
excuse the fact.
You're getting results, right?
Yes, he's trying to excuse the fact and cover up the fact that the cases that I'm seeing are diagnosed as neurological at the top medical centers in the country by the best and the brightest, and that I cannot and I do not treat psychotherapeutically. That is not my area. I do treat it by behavior modification, which is my area, and that if it were neurological, I couldn't cure it. But he's saying that the cases I'm treating to a cure are not neurological. Nonsense. They've been diagnosed as neurological.
Aronson is assuming, because you're getting results in a condition that is regarded by his field and the medical profession at large as incurable. He's assuming that it must have been a faulty diagnosis. But when you've drawn to his attention, you had a conversation with him recently, and you told him these cases were not misdiagnosed. They were diagnosed by the top otolaryngologists in the country.
But they were diagnosed by Arnie Aronson of the Mayo Clinic with Reverend James Johnson as a neurological problem. Dr. James he's a Reverend James Johnson, has been cured of spasmodic dysphonia for about 18 years. Arnie Aronson knows that.
And Aronson diagnosed him as a neurological disorder.
That's correct.
Not as a psychogenic or psychological problem.
What's interesting about the whole thing,
but since you get the results, then all of a sudden he attributes a psychological diagnosis to when Cooper gets results.
Yeah, or the medical profession says when I get results with their spasmodic dysphonic cases that they have failed with, whether it's Botox or surgery, that it wasn't spasmodic dysphonia. Then that could be a case for malpractice if they're saying I didn't treat the
isn't that a
SD
tautology?
cases. What's that?
They put you into a tautology?
Yes.
No, I mean, it's like a circular reasoning.
Yeah.
Well, if you get results, that means that it was not spasmodic dysphonia. But if they don't get results, that means it is spasmodic dysphonia. It's like a loop. But Aronson has to agree that you are, for whatever the cases are, getting results.
But he did. I spoke with him the other day.
He did acknowledge that.
He acknowledges I have cures of spasmodic dysphonia. The issue is the cover-up of the New York Times at the highest level on the way down. And I wrote recently to Bill Keller, the new editor of the New York Times. I got no response. I've written to Dan Okrent, who is being replaced by another person who was the ombudsman for the New York Times. There is no interest in investigating or discussing cures of spasmodic dysphonia by one lone doctor in the world that has on his website the fact that SD, spasmodic dysphonia, is curable, and that Botox may be the treatment of choice today, but tomorrow it may be another story. Thank you very much for joining with me, Dr. John Curtis. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you get results, Aronson finds it psychogenic. When they don't get any results, then he finds it legitimate, legitimate.
Aronson is one part of the issue. The New York Times is the key, because if they were to accept the fact that there are cures, then the medical profession would be forced to review itself and reconsider. At the present point, because the medical profession is totally opposed to cures, they are totally opposed to cures, despite the fact they know of my cures. So what has happened is patients who have the strangled voice are not ready to believe or have credibility in what I'm doing. There are cures of spasmodic dysphonia.